This is a Global Tel-Link prepaid call from
Tariq Maqbool,
an inmate at New Jersey State Prison. This call will be monitored and recorded.
Hello.
Here he is.
Hey, Jack, how are you?
Oh, mate, I've had better weeks. Let's be
brother?
honest. I've had much better weeks.
It's okay. You recording now or what?
Mate, I'm absolutely recording now. Hello, and welcome back to 1 Minute Remaining. My name is Jack Lawrence, the host and creator of this show. Today is part 2 of the story of Tariq Maqbool, found guilty of a brutal double homicide. He's been sentenced to over 100 years for a crime he says he didn't commit. So to give you a little peek behind the OMR curtain, I've been speaking with Tariq for a couple of months now, as we've recorded and documented his story. Hours upon hours of conversations, piecing together the timeline of events and the case against him. And so just last week, I jumped into my office on Monday morning, ready to dive in and start building his story. I fired up my computer, grabbed the file I needed, which contained over 2 hours of conversations, hit play, and... That's weird, I thought. Let me close the file and reopen it. I hit play again. Nothing. As my heart rate started to race, I frantically opened folder after folder, file after file, in a desperate attempt to hope to find some sort of backup. This frantic search went on for the better part of an entire day, before I finally faced up to the reality that it was gone. Hours of conversation no longer existed. I then proceeded to spend the next 2 days angry. Along with this, my wife was sick and in bed for 2 days, my kids were homesick from school, and my garage door broke. Now, why am I telling you all of this? Is it to try and garner some form of sympathy? No. It's because after I finally stopped kicking things and having my little tanty, I jumped on and emailed Tariq to give him the news. Hey buddy, so I have a major issue my end. Somehow 2 of the files with our chats attached have just got no audio. I have no idea why, it's never happened before. My plan was to start getting this story out next week, so I need to get onto this as soon as possible, and we need to re-record some stuff. It appears to be mainly, of course, all the important information that I've lost. I'm so sorry, buddy. This hasn't happened before, but we need to get back on as soon as possible. Can we chat this week? And this was Tariq's reply. Hey buddy, don't worry. It'll be all right. Smile. With all its trials and tribulations, life is still a beautiful journey. So this reply really made me take stock. Here I am, a guy with a beautiful family, a lovely home, doing a job I love, and I spent 2 days being an ass because of some lost audio and a broken garage door. Really? Here's a guy facing over 100 years in prison for a double homicide that he says he's innocent of, and he's telling me not to worry, telling me to smile, telling me life is a beautiful journey. I said in the previous episode, the people who I believe are telling me the truth show me that in the way they conduct themselves and speak and respond to things. Well, need I say more? And on that note, Tariq and I did re-record our conversation, so let us continue his story. So Tariq and his family have moved to the United States, and he makes the decision pretty early on that if he's moving here, he's taking the bull by the horns, so to speak, and living the American life. Much to the behest of his parents. And the tug of war between them and Tariq continues once he finishes high school.
After high school, this is Long Island when I finished, I wanted to, go into flying, but my parents were really, really adamant into getting computer science and stuff. So I started taking computer science as a major, and, I did quite well. I think I made the dean's list the first. It's like, it's the honor roll, that type of stuff. But I was in a lab one day. We were doing a C++ programming lab or something, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking around, and with all due respect to everybody, the guys, I couldn't see myself with that crowd. I couldn't see myself working in for my life as a career in a cubicle somewhere, just typing away on a computer, some coding and stuff. So I just had this moment, and I was like, I can't do this. So I just changed my major to, putting a lot of information system and business in it. So I was happy, but at the same time, I started looking into flying lessons and stuff because that was my childhood goal, to become a pilot.
How did your parents feel about you ditching the computer science and changing your major?
Did not tell them. Did not tell them. I don't think my parents were, had anything to understand at that time. I kind of rebelled in a way. I said, I'm going to do what's going to be best for me. I realized a lot of things my parents were, when people come from overseas and stuff, and they have this idea about the new land where we're going to. You're an immigrant. So they have a very, very keyhole view of things. I realized very quickly they had no clue, exception of, okay, let's just go to work, let's study hard, and just make a career, and that's it. So I realized they had no clue. They had no clue about financial aid. They had no clue about how to get grants, how to get... So I just realized that, wow, I have to figure all this out myself. So I started doing it, obviously, with a lot of help from people I met in college and stuff, made friends. And then it was much easier. Information system is mostly, it's more business-based, but a lot of computers involved. So they had no clue what I was doing.
Part of his independence from his family and being able to do his own thing meant Tariq needed money and worked multiple jobs in order to make that money.
In the beginning, the first semester or two, I was working like all odd jobs. Like I was working really, really hard. I was working, you're not going to believe that, I was working like 3-4 jobs a day sometimes. I worked on a fishing boat off Long Island Sound, catching lobsters. I was a lobster fisherman. I'll work there till like 6-7 o'clock in the morning, and then I'll run to a fish market where I was working, to pack chum, making chum, and like different type of fish. It was very hard work, honestly. It was smelly work, but money was great. I also worked on shingles, like roofing and stuff, with some of my coaches who were, high school coaches, but they were also working summer jobs and stuff, just to learn trade and stuff, So I was doing odd jobs at that time in the first year, you can say. I made a decision not to play football because of my parents' pressure. So that really, really got me towards rebelling against them. Because I think I had a very good chance of getting a scholarship, but they just wouldn't let me because their whole idea about studying and playing was completely different. The idea of student athlete, they had no comprehension. And so after that, I got into mobile business. The cellular phone industry was just starting to pick up. The digital wave was coming. There was a big shift from analog to digital. So there were tons of jobs. So I started working in that industry, I think starting my second year of college.
So when Tariq's family first moved to the United States, they in fact moved to Long Island, where he had an aunt, and they stayed with her for some time, until eventually making the move to New Jersey, where he attends high school. While here, though, the family's visa comes up for renewal, and they in fact have to go back to Pakistan while the paperwork is finalized. So they do just that. But his parents eventually send him and his brother back to the US in order to finish their schooling. Tariq was sent to New Jersey, and his brother, Eddie, was in Long Island. After his schooling, Tariq decided he wanted to be with his brother, so went to Long Island and lived with his aunt. When his parents finally made it back to the United States, they arrived in Long Island, but eventually decided to head back to New Jersey, and Tariq refused. He didn't want to go. He liked Long Island. He was happy there. He had friends.
So I had a community there that supported me, So my parents got up and left, went to Jersey, and took my little brother with them. That was very hard on me. But I basically rebelled. I refused to go to Jersey. I was staying with my aunt, and I was just looking into rooming and boarding with some of my friends. I was just fighting with them, going to school and just dorming there. And just my mother and my father just had this weird thing about, it's old school Pakistan way of like, no, you're not going to dorm, you're going to come home, drive. I was like, it's just too much, going to school. Then schools are not close, universities are not close. So you got to drive a long way, and then I got to go to my work. And I just wanted to live on the campus, live the campus life and stuff, but they just wouldn't let me. So I just started rebelling. So I just started staying at my friend's house, but some of them have their own apartments and stuff. So I just crashed out. We were just young, and we partied late, went to clubs, and went to work in the morning, then took classes and did it all over again. So my parents moved to Jersey, and they kept on pressuring me to come, and I didn't want to go.
Eventually, though, Tariq caves to not only the pressure from his parents, but also his brother, who was having a hard time and wanted him to be close. So Tariq does what he now says was the worst decision he ever made. He packs his bags and heads back to Jersey.
And then, my brother Eddie, I love him to death, and, we always have been together like a pair. So he was in Jersey, so he was having a hard time. So I got him a job at the same spot I was. But at the same time, he kept telling me, bro, just come on. Like, I can't just live there by myself. So that's when I made I consider the fatal mistake of my life. I moved to Jersey in 2001, I think. It's really the pit of the Northeast. It's considered a progressive state, but it is. If people don't know the history, and coming here, I studied a lot. This is one of the last northern states to give up on slavery. So I find Jersey to be extremely racist. Actually, New Jersey has still the worst racial disparity between black and white prisoners. 12 to 1 for every 12 black people, they only lock up one white person.
Sounds as bad as the South.
Yes, this is worse than the South.
He's back in Jersey, working in the new mobile phone business and following his passion, learning to fly.
I was actually flying around this area. I was taking some at the community college in Mercer. There was an airport here, so I was just flying Cessna 172s right around this area in Trenton. Never in my darkest dreams I could have fathomed that I'm going to end up in this prison, in this place. Funny thing is, every day I'm in the yard, I see Cessna 172s flying, and I name the plane sometimes. So there's some guys that are critical, they're skeptic by nature. Like, how do you know? What plane is that? And I'll tell them that's a 737, that's a, Pin Otter, this and that, this and that. And they sit there, look at me, and they're like, how do you know? I was like, only if I could tell you the story. So, and I know there are kids flying in Cessna 172s, and they're learning around here, and I see those every single day. Kind of hard to swallow sometimes. But,
yeah, I can imagine.
No one really knows.
Eventually, though, flying just becomes too expensive, and Tariq decides he needs to focus on business, make his own money, and then come back to his dream when he's in a better financial position.
After 2 semesters, I realized, one of my professors said this in the first day of class, they were studying clouds, patterns and stuff, and he said there's a lot of money in aviation. He said, you know how? How do I know? I was like, no. He's like, because I put it there. And he was absolutely right. It's just so much, it's expensive just to fly. So after almost a kid, 20, 21, 22 years old, it was very hard to keep on doing it. So I kind of gave up on the dream. I said, you know what, I'll come back when I do have my own finances to become a pilot and on my own, and then go from there.
So he would dive headfirst into the mobile phone industry, gets himself a job at the American telecommunication company, Verizon, as one of their reps. And in fact, quickly became one of their top Northeast reps, making good money and well on his way to success, when all of a sudden, September 11, 2001, changes everything.
Now, some very, very sketchy details reaching us here at Sky Centre. Important enough to bring to you, though, at this early stage. We believe that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center in...
You're looking at the World Trade Center. We understand that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center. We don't know anything more than that. We don't know if it was a commercial...
In episode 1, I set up the whole story with talking about September 11, because obviously your particular case, going to court, it was highly spoke about your religion and where you come from and your background, and sort of trying to paint you as this evil person, like those people who committed those atrocities on that day.
Windows were coming out, all the papers were
What is on the sidewalk?
I didn't see anything.
Was there any people hurt, do you know?
I just ran and everyone...
And I do say in that opening, I say, you know, if you even looked like the people that committed those atrocities, life for you was hard, and, you know, you were seen by some members of the public as enemy number one, and, oh, you're just like those people who flew into those buildings. What was life like for a Muslim man, a Pakistani man in America after September 11?
I think that, you know, you just wake up on like Twilight Zone, and you wake up and you see people that you have seen every day, that you wave at them and they smile at you. You know, the niceties of just living in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
All of that was gone.
And 2 and 2, 1. This is as close as we can get to the base of the World Trade Center. You can see the firemen assembled here, the police officers, FBI agents, and you can see the two towers. A huge explosion now raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way.
Today we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country.
It was like a blink of a second. Like all of a sudden there was this cutting eyes and just people just acting tough, but it's passive aggressive stuff. You know, it wasn't the way I am or I was back then. But I was very, very up in your face type of guy. So people didn't really bother me. But there were a lot of things in the neighborhood in Jersey, like, you know, people were being bullied and stuff. So I called a lot of friends and told them anyone had any issues. So my number was on their speed dial. Like, any issues, come let me know. You know, we'll go take care of walk some people to the mosque. You know, somebody had issues at the Pathmark. So walked with them or took somebody. And the older women, you know, some they still dress like the old school people. So they get bullied and stuff. I was with somebody at that time, a friend of mine, and like her whole family was just like, you know, they wanted me to come over and have a dinner with them. So I went to their house, and when I went to the house, I mean, these are Puerto Rican people, so, I mean, the entire family was there. I mean, their abuelitas and, like, you know, I mean, grandmothers, and I'm like, what the like, I didn't expect all that. And they sat me down and, you know, give me some food and then talking, and I felt like the entire family's eyes were on me. And so she goes like, so are you going to get your family out of there? I said, out of where? And she's like, you know, out of your, you know, Pakistan. I said, why? And she's like, well, you know, we're about to go. We're going to bomb the crap out of that country. I said, what are you talking about? I said, most of them are Saudis and Egyptians. But they're going to go after Pakistan. I said, why? And of course, later on, the United States does go to Afghanistan. I understand Osama and Iraq and all that stuff. But yeah, I had to sit there for 2 hours, and I was being respectful because the grandmothers were there, and I liked the girls. So I told her, I said, what is this? She's like, they just wanted to know, they wanted to be educated. I was like, this is education? You bring the entire, like, Rasa over here to talk to me? Like, so yeah, that was a very, very weird thing. But hey, you know, but I didn't take it as I think I took them as they're just misinformed. But it's just naive stuff. But that's it, you know. I think for the community it was very hard. People were scared to go out, especially the Pakistani girls. You know, they will dress up in their shalwar kameez, you know, how they dress in the traditional clothes sometimes. The most heart-wrenching thing was I knew some girls that were very religious, and I knew them to be very religious, you know, just the sincere way. Some of them actually removed their hijab, like, you know, the head covering they wear. And I was shocked when I saw them on the street, and I was like, what are you doing? And she just looked down and she almost started crying. She's like, I can't go out, Tariq. And at that moment I was like, you know what, I'm not going to be judgmental. Stop being a judgmental dick about it. You know, I don't have to live that because girls are a little harder. So I understood. But yeah, that was, and I think it remains till this. It has somehow been ingrained into the ethos of this country. Till this day, Muslims are always looked at the other. It's never going to be. You could be an immigrant from Scandinavia, right, and you'll be just fine, but you have the biggest accent in the world, but, you know, you're going to have Inca from Sweden, and you can have an accent, but it doesn't matter. Yeah. Like, you know, I could be speaking perfectly. I was born and raised in, I don't know, freaking Phoenix, Arizona. Nope, you were the jackass who's from out of here. You know, you're not from here.
Tariq says that he himself would experience a situation one day at McDonald's restaurant when he and a friend drove to get something to eat.
One of my friends, he came to pick me up. And on the back of the car, he had this big old crescent moon and star, the representation of Pakistan's flag. Just the crescent moon and star. And before that, it was all cool. People liked it. It was just fancy. It was something exotic, And so I parked the car. I walked in there, and I just made my order, and I just sat down. I just see women, they'd keep on pointing at me, and it was just too abrupt, too in my face. I'm sitting there, but pointing at me. And they looking outside the window, saying something, and I'm to a point, I was like, what the hell are you talking about? And then I see them getting angry and angrier. And they start cursing, F that, F him, that type of stuff. But nobody's saying it, they're saying it in the air. Yeah. So I just, after a while, I'd find that hilarious, finding women to be mad. So I'm like, okay, I got up there and I went to I said, is there any problems? So she's like, oh no. And then it was just literally all 5, 6 of them that just got quiet. So I said, what is it? You want to say something? And so the woman just turned her back and said, is that your car there? I was like, yeah. I said, you got a problem with it? And she's like, no, I have no problem. I said, you guys seem like you have the problems. I said, what? And I just dressed her down. I just told her off. Then the manager comes in the back. So he was apologetic, but at the same time, he's like, he had this attitude this F off, just get out of my store, that type of stuff.
The next issue would in fact see Tariq having to leave his employment as he turns up to work one day to find someone had left something at his cubicle.
There was this poster somebody posted at my workstation with Osama bin Laden's picture and on a milk carton. Somebody put under it, hey T, that's your dad, isn't it? And I was like, so I blew up on the guy. And of course, my blowing up on the guy was the issue they had rather than actually investigating what he had done. And I ended up getting the brunt of it because he knew the zone director for 15, 20 years. So, of course, I was booted. So that was the structure at that time.
So Tariq decides to go out on his own and start his own business. He finds a shop in a local shopping mall that's up for rent.
So I liquidated all my 401ks, all my savings, which was a substantial amount, even for a 25-year-old kid, and I was very proud of that. So I liquidated everything, and I still remember talking to the financial manager, and she's like, are you crazy? And I'm like, no, I got to do it. So I liquidated everything. One of my cousins invested in me, and invested in me, I say, on that purpose, because I don't think he wanted, business is one thing, they invest in people. So I got a store right in front of Verizon's main kiosk in the mall, and I opened the store there. And yeah, that was another big thing. So yeah, I opened my own store. I was very proud of it. We built it from ground up the way I wanted to, and like I said, it was a success from day one. I think we opened on June 10th, 2002.
Obviously we know you got into scraps and bits and pieces when you were a kid, and you always were sticking up for people and looking out for, friends and whatnot. But other than those little altercations and things that people get in throughout their life, you had never been arrested by the police and never spent a day in jail. Is that right?
No, I've never been arrested. Heck no.
No.
I was not that type of dude. No, I have friends who were cops. Their fathers were cops and stuff. I'm talking about fights here and there. Remember in the 90s, the culture was different. Back in the day, we used to fight under the yard every day almost.
Yeah.
It's not I'm not saying there's thuggery going around. It's just, life was different.
Things are moving well for Tariq. He's got a good name in the industry. He has a number of suppliers he uses and buys through, including a guy named Manish, or Mike. It's while collecting orders from Mike's place that he meets a couple of guys named Andy and Jay.
Mike he owned the wireless distributorship out of New York City. He was the one I was actually using as a master dealer, we call it. A master dealer is like person who basically sells in wholesale to other stores. And they were their employees, and when I used to go there to pick up my stuff, that's how we kind of like became acquainted. There was Andy and the other guy, Jay, that will testify against me. And so that's how I knew them. It's not like, they just come up and knock on my door.
Yeah. So you build a relationship with them from seeing them picking up stuff from your supplier, basically.
Yeah, seeing them, and a few times we hung out. A lot of my friends were promoters and DJs in New York City, so we did a lot of parties and stuff. So they were very, very interested in that life, style and stuff. And so they hung out 1 or 2 times. They went to the clubs together, and I was involved in a cricket league in Jersey. So, a lot of these guys come from, the subcontinent, so people like cricket. So when they knew I was into cricket, they were like, oh, wow, they want to play. So I invited them twice, I think 2 times, to play cricket. It's less than 5 or 6 times we hung out. But yeah, so I knew them. So then the other kid, the other co-defendant, Zayd, I met him in the mosque in August of 2002. Somebody introduced me to him. And he had a business of his own. He had a falling out with his partners or something. And he wanted to learn the business from me because he heard a lot about me. So I said, yeah, I can't afford you, but I can teach you, how the business is run. But I can get you employment in New York City with some big guys, guys who actually run the major businesses, and then you can learn there. I cannot afford you in my store. I just started myself. But I can definitely coach you and stuff. So that's how I had met him in August of 2002. These guys, I met them in December of 2001, and then there was a lull. I did not get to talk to them till June. So Andy and Jay, they brought this deal to me, and that's how the deal started. Like, they wanted to know if I can facilitate a person, a deal basically for them for a large amount of cards and stuff. And in the beginning it was different amounts. At the end, it was like almost $1 million we're talking about.
So this Andy and Jay say to Tariq that they have a buyer who wants to buy a substantial amount of prepaid SIM cards.
Prepaid cards were sold in the market at that time for a fixed rate, 18.5%, discounts and stuff. They were obviously looking for something bigger because that was just the regular, deal you can get.
And the deal that they were proposing to Tariq could be worth up to $1 million.
$1 million worth of cards is a big-ass deal. It's not unheard of, first of all. It's a lot of big dealerships, they have, that's how the master dealers work. They're basically distributors. They have hundreds of stores under them, some of them the big ones. And hundreds of stores are buying stuff from them weekly or monthly basis. So they got to have a stock of a lot of cards. So $1 million worth of stuff for them is not unheard of because they can sell potentially that much. So cards usually used to run in $25, $50, $100 increments.
Of course, these guys both work for Mike, or Manish, which is Tariq's supplier. So the first question is, why are they coming to Tariq and not going to Mike?
I was kind of confused because I used to get stuff from their dealership, so why would they come to me?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was going to ask, why would they come to you and not go to Mike?
Yeah, I was flabbergasted by the fact that I was like, why don't you guys go to Manish, the guy Mike, their boss, and they were like, no, he's going to cut us out, it is a big deal, and I found the deal myself, and, all types of stories. And at that time, I also knew that these guys were, they come from the immigrant background, so they were all trying to get money, basically. Jay was illegal. He was trying to, I knew this already, that hanging out with them, talking to them here and there. Jay was looking for some money for this paper marriage he was doing, so he was short on cash. Andy and Z were also trying to get immigration lawyers and whatnot, so they need money. So, just like, you buy sad stories. Looking back, I'm more, I'm 47 years old now, so when I was younger, it was like more, I don't know what you want to call it, like that whole thing I did in high school, like, look out for people. I don't know why I have that, but I had that, so I was like, you know what, it doesn't hurt to help them.
Famous last words, because little did Tariq know at the time just how much helping these gentlemen would hurt him. But he does. and so calls another supplier and friend of his by the name of Kenny Joong.
Within a month, I think, or a week, I would say, I talked to Kenny Joong. He had a very, very big distributorship in Queens, New York. It was called Malcolm Wireless. So anyways, I told them I got this person, and not only that, actually, I took them. They completely denied this. I took them to Kenny. I was in New York City, and I said, why don't you meet me there? So they all came together. It was Andy, Jay, and Zaid that day. Because Zaid, by that time, had gotten to know them. They used to hang out, play cards and stuff, and gamble. And so he was with them in that whole, spiel. So we came to Malcolm Wireless. That's where I met them. I said, hello, Kenny. I made the introduction to the guy that I was talking to you about. They have a buyer who's interested in buying $1 million worth of cards. So Kenny listened, and I literally went in the back trying to buy my own stuff because I used to buy stuff from Kenny too. And Kenny talked to them, and when I came outside from the back, he said, Tariq, what they're asking for is impossible. And they're looking for something like, the percentage they're looking for, it's impossible to do. And they want 20% and under, even for that price range. I said, okay, but can you do something for them? And this is when Kenny said it, and this was his words, and that never came out in the trial. He said, I will try to do my best, but if it's that big of a deal, it has to be in cash only. Now, you and I can understand why he would say that, because when you make a deal that big and you do it only on cash, you kind of shave money on the taxes.
Yeah,
you
of
don't
course.
pay Uncle Sam that much.
Yeah.
And this is why he wanted to do it. So he said it. In the trial, they never said anything about Kenny. They didn't say anything about Jay. He's the only one who testified. He said Tariq wanted everything in one. I never said it. So later on, after my trial was over, when I did get a statement from Kenny, he confirmed it. He's like, yeah, I said it. It was $1 million. He said, I said it had to be in cash.
You have 1 minute remaining.
And that's all we have time for. Coming up, though, things get complicated as Andy, Jay, and Z continue to pressure Tariq to become more involved with the deal. They want to use his reputation that he's built in the industry to help get this deal done. But Tariq says he wasn't interested. He would make introductions, but that was it. So as far as you're concerned now, leaving that building, that is, you're done. That you've done what you said you would try and do for them. They now know Kenny. They can just deal with the rest of it themselves.
And Kenny also said, Tariq, this goes through, I got you, and then that type of stuff. So I was like, okay, no problem.
And then the deal goes south. Big time.
He said, I really got to tell you something. I said, what's up? He said, things just went wrong. I said, what do you mean went wrong? He said, just listen, Andy and Jay, they left. I'm leaving the country too.
Next time on 1 Minute Remaining. 1 Minute Remaining is a Mashed Pumpkin production, created, hosted and produced by Jack Lawrence, with thanks to special guest producer Alyssa Cook. Audio and sound design by Jack Lawrence and Dom Evans of Earsay.